Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my preview for the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix, the first of our 3 races to close out the season. It's a season that's gone by very, very quickly, in my opinion. So first, taking a look at your circuit layout, and this is a track that, of course, the Las Vegas Street Circuit. A lot of long straights here. Of course, turn 1, sector 1. Is a possible overtaking zone, of course, with that straight with a kink from 16 down to turn 1. Sometimes you can make moves going from turns 3, 4 into turns 5, but we haven't seen a whole lot of that in the last 2 years. I was going to say recent years, but we've only had 2 races here. Sector 2, of course, is where you have the kind of slow speed chicanes and stuff, and turns 10, 11. Those like sweepers. Followed up by turn 12, which is probably one of the more important corners on the track to get right, as getting a good exit out of that track is really important to being able to set up a move going down along the Las Vegas Strip going into turn 14, which is generally the best overtaking zone around the lap. And then that gets you basically to that tight little chicane complex where, Colapinto obviously crashed in qualifying last year, and that's basically a lap of the circuit. 17 corners total and 2 DRS zones. So looking at some of the stats for this track, it's 6.201 kilometers long. We're expected to have 50 laps of racing on Saturday. I was about to say Sunday, but of course everything shifted by day just because of just to make the time zones work and to make sure that the race doesn't start on a weekday for most of the world. The race lap record is a 1:34.876, and that was set by Lando Norris last year. Decent chance that that gets broken again this year, but it will really depend on the track conditions. So the average speed of that lap is 234 kilometers an hour, which ranks 8th of the 24 tracks on this year's calendar. Downforce rating very, very low, 0.06. So I expect all the teams to bring close to what they would bring to Monza. Very low downforce wings. And they were going to be wanting to bring their low drag aerodynamic packages. Full throttle, 78% of the lap, so still a little bit lower than Monza, which is in the mid 80s, but still pretty good. It has a lot of the same characteristics of long straights and a lot of slow speed corners. Corner tendency, like I said, slow. Most of the corners are going to be on the slower side. There are a couple fast sweepers, but most of those fast sweepers are flat out, like the turn 17 and the 2 sweepers in sector 2 as well. Now, taking a look at some other stats, all of these stats, it's 50%, I guess. Pole to win ratio, 50%. Of course, there's only been 2 races, so makes sense there. Rookie qualifying percentage, 50%. And again, very small sample size. I think there's only 2 rookies who qualify for that criteria. And that ranks 3rd of the 24 tracks on this year's calendar. But like I said, really small sample size, so we don't really know just yet. We're going to need a couple more years of data to have a good idea of whether this is a track that's hard for rookies or a bit easier for rookies. Now, safety car percentage is 50%. We had 2 safety cars the first year and none last year. And of course, 2 years ago, 2023 was the first race of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It is the newest newest event, I guess, on the current F1 calendar. I know we raced in Vegas in the 80s, but that was obviously Caesar's Palace, a completely different Grand Prix and a completely different track. So tires for this weekend are the soft C5, medium C4, and the hard C3. These are apparently a step softer than what we had last year, and they could be a big talking point, especially when we look at the temperatures that we're expected to have this weekend. And that's a good segue to talk about the weekend schedule. So for Thursday, FP1 is at 4:30 in the afternoon, FP2 at 8, and the expected weather for Thursday, FP2 is 12 degrees, maybe cloudy, maybe rainy. I think it's a 38% chance of rain. And I think I've seen on that there's actually a flood warning for the Las Vegas area. So it'll be interesting to see if that impacts the scheduling at all for any of the competitive sessions. If this flooding is serious and it's in the Las Vegas Strip area, could definitely play havoc with the weekend as a whole. Then we get to Friday, FP3 at 4:30 p.m., qualifying at 8 p.m. local time, and expected weather for qualifying is 11 degrees. So 1 degree cooler but a slightly lower chance of rain, only 16%. Then we get to Saturday, main Grand Prix at 8 p.m. Expected temperature for the start of the Grand Prix is 14 degrees Celsius, and it's expected to be clear for the race. So shouldn't have the weather, rain should not have any impact on the Saturday for the Grand Prix. But of course, rain on Thursday, rain on Friday, especially with very low track temperatures, could play havoc, especially given that it's a street circuit and the barriers are so close. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. The low temperatures, of course, are something that we've learned is kind of a feature of Las Vegas, and it's a very unique challenge for the cars and for the tires. And we've seen that not thermal, but graining on the tires has been a big issue the last couple of years, and it kind of throws a bit of a spanner into the works when it comes to the pecking order. So moving on to last year's race. Of course, last year's race was a bit of an outlier when it came to the final results. It was a dominant Mercedes 1-2, Russell winning from pole, Hamilton recovering from a botched qualifying to finish second, and Carlos Sainz rounding out the podium in third. So one of the big stories from the early part of the race was, of course, Pierre Gasly started the Grand Prix in third, an absolutely amazing result. In the Alpine, basically car went kaboom, engine said no, and that was the end of his race from what was looking like it could have been a very, very promising points haul. I don't think a podium would have been possible, but definitely, top 5, top 6 result I think could have been on the cards that weekend. And of course, a lot of the overtaking that weekend was done by Lewis Hamilton coming through the field. Other than that, not a whole lot of changes to drivers' positions relative to where they started. But yeah, it was really just Hamilton was the one big mover coming through the field in a very, very fast Mercedes car. So, of course, like I said, when it was all said and done, it was the two Mercs and the Ferrari of Sainz. Of course, kind of the big story overshadowing that was the fact that this was the race where Max Verstappen was crowned 4-time world champion. Of course, at this point, after this race, Norris could no longer mathematically catch him for the title. So, just speaking a little bit of the title for this weekend, with Norris 24 points ahead of Piastri, and because of the fact that it's 1 point shy of a Grand Prix win, and the fact that we have the sprint in Qatar, it means that even if Norris gets the win, Piastri gets no points. It means that Norris cannot mathematically win the championship this weekend, so we're guaranteed to have the title decided in either Qatar or Abu Dhabi. And so that being said, still be a really important weekend for the championship, as Verstappen's still there, but it's looking like it's Norris's title to lose at this point, with his almost 1 race advantage over Piastri and almost 2 race advantage, I think, over Verstappen. So taking a look at best and worst qualifiers for the Las Vegas Grand Prix for this track. Now, of course, like I kind of implied at the beginning, it's a very small sample size, so for this section of the video, usually you have quite a few Grand Prix of data to go off of, but here it's only 2, so again, take these results with a grain of salt. So first, for best qualifier is Pierre Gasly. Of course, if you don't know by now, it's relative to your career average, so not just the raw 100%, 0%. If you've out-qualified your teammate every time, or 0% if you've out-qualified your teammate, or if you've never out-qualified your teammate. So for Gasly, it's plus 37% relative to his career average, with a median qualifying gap of negative 0.452. Then we get to number 2, and it's Lando Norris, plus 29%, but median qualifying gap is much smaller, less than 1/10 of a second, 8600ths of a second to be exact. And then number 3 is George Russell, plus 25%. Median qualifying gap, yes, you read that right, it's 8.14 seconds. Technically, he out-qualified Lewis Hamilton by 15 seconds last year, and so that really skews the data when you do the medians, of course. But luckily, that should not be a big issue after this year. I don't think Russell's going to out-qualify Antonelli by anywhere near such a big margin, and I'm pretty sure Hamilton's not going to get out-qualified by Leclerc by anywhere near that margin either. So hopefully, just 1 year statistical anomaly, and things will be fixed for next year. Now, when we look at worst qualifiers, number 1 is the aforementioned Lewis Hamilton, negative 63%. Has been out-qualified by Russell both years here with that pretty hideous margin like I mentioned before. Then we get to number 2, Esteban Ocon. Makes sense. He was teammates with Pierre Gasly both of those years, negative 43%, and median is the same. And then number 3 is Lance Stroll, negative 24%, median qualifying gap of about 0.4 of a second. So now when we get to quality model predictions, the 10 drivers who are predicted to out-qualify their teammates are Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, Alonso, Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, Sainz, and Bortolotto. The only change from last week in Brazil is that Sainz is now predicted to out-qualify Albon. And for this, I usually would use the median qualifying gaps to kind of predict things. But for the Ferrari and the Mercedes, I just took the 2023 number and got rid of the 15 seconds from last year that was causing a massive skew. Otherwise, you would see predictions of like 2 seconds for both Leclerc and Russell, respectively. Now, finishing up with some predictions for this weekend, I think given that the track characteristics are pretty similar to what we saw in Monza, similar to what we saw in Baku, I think, and given that Red Bull was so strong in those races, I do think predicting Max Verstappen to win this Grand Prix is a pretty reasonable bet. But that being said, the cold weather, perhaps the rain could throw a spanner in the works, especially if qualifying is wet. That could definitely help the McLarens, for example. But again, we shall see. Now, for second and third, I think Mercedes should generally be strong here. I think the fact that this is a track where, again, pretty cool. And while Mercedes' record in cold conditions is not as strong as it was last year, it still should be a pretty good car. So I think Russell on the podium should also be a pretty reasonable prediction. Now, the McLarens have struggled here in the last couple of years, but that being said, I do think that perhaps they should be a bit more on top of their issues. And again, even in Monza, Norris was third, of course, with the podium. Finished second, of course. It was second, third with Piastri, third, of course. But that being said, they still have shown that at least in some tracks, some low downforce tracks, that they can perform. It's just maybe Baku, I think, was a bit of an anomaly. So I do think predicting Norris third to round out the podium is a pretty good bet as well. Given that my predictions have been pretty rubbish this season, in my opinion, I expect things to be completely different. We'll have a Aston Martin 1-2 with Hamilton on the podium to round things out. That's probably going to happen instead. So there you go. That is my preview and my predictions for the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix. It should be a pretty interesting weekend. I'm looking forward to the fact that I can actually watch the race live for a change, and it's middle of the afternoon for me, and it's not some crazy hour in the middle of the night. So definitely an enjoyable one for me this weekend. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.